Good day, everyone, and welcome back to Card Zone. My name is Sergio, and I am your host. Episode 8. Wow. Not including the trailer, of course, but done very well. I'm quite proud of myself as far as coming forward and putting this out there. Achieving the goal. Not the ultimate goal is to reach out to and have this open discussion, especially about from a male's perspective. And I've had quite a few people reach out and tell me their story, which them telling me that listening to my podcasts has give them a little bit of courage and to seek some help, which is fantastic. This is all I've ever wanted, just to reach people out there and get some help. Most recently went to a particular restaurant without naming any names and got talking to, believe it or not, our waitress. And lo and behold, she was a survivor as well. And so I pointed her to my podcast, which she stated she was definitely going to listen. It's small things like that that people just come out and it's perfectly fine to talk about it. There's no shame and no judgment from my end. So anyway, so before we get started, as you all know, got to read that disclaimer. And this podcast may discuss sensitive topics, including CSA, so listener discretion is advised. This podcast discusses experiences of abuse, violence, suicidal ideation, and CSA, which may be distressing to some listeners. The content provided is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional advice. So if you or someone you know needs support, please seek help from a qualified professional or contact your local helpline in your area. So this week I thought I would talk about denial and how it relates to CSA, and amongst other things, because it doesn't just relate to CSA. Denial relates to depression, also anxiety, panic attacks. There's various things, various topics that it connects to, but in this particular case, it has quite a bit of effect on CSA. I can speak from my experience that long time ago I had somebody ask me if I had been sexually abused, and I denied it straight out without even any hesitation. Just said, no, what are you, nuts? Are you stupid or something? Like, I just went on, and I guess thinking about it now, I got quite defensive. And there's a clue right there in itself when somebody denies it and gets very defensive. It's a very strong clue. My thinking was off as well, because I didn't want people to think of me in a certain way. And so denial is very big. So discussing denial in the context of CSA is crucial, because denial often plays a significant role in both the perpetration and the perpetuation of abuse, as well as in the aftermath of disclosure. Denial can manifest in various ways, impacting both the survivor and those around them. The first one is perpetrator denial. Many perpetrators of CSA deny their actions, either to themselves or to others. This denial can stem from a desire to avoid accountability, guilt, or legal consequences. They may also rationalize their behavior or minimize the harm caused, often by blaming the victim or claiming the abuse was consensual. This is a perfect example of if you listen to my episode 3, The perfect example of the person who was also involved, that I called him being involved, was just the egg. She denied the whole thing. I was making it up. It was all in my mind. Maybe I misunderstood. No, you can't misunderstood what you go through. And so in this person's case, they were trying to avoid accountability, avoid, the guilt, and maybe the shame that they felt because they didn't do anything about it, but now they're just trying to sweep it under the rug. And of course, the legal consequences at the end of the day. And so, there's a good example of what I went through. Family, the next one is family and community denial. This is also big because family members and communities may also engage in denial as a coping mechanism, acknowledging that someone they know and trust could commit such acts can be psychologically distressing. As a result, they may ignore warning signs, dismiss allegations, or actively silence victims to protect the perpetrator and preserve their own sense of normalcy. A good example is another good example would be the Team Canada, boys Team Canada that were out in Alberta when they were playing back, I think it's 2018. And the team itself, the people who run it, they've been trying to cover the whole thing up just to protect their reputation. Survivor denial, also big. Survivors of CSA may experience denial as a way to cope with the trauma. It can be overwhelming to accept that someone they trusted violated them, so they may suppress memories of the abuse or convince themselves that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. Additionally, suicidal stigma and victim blaming attitudes can contribute to survivors doubting their own experiences or fearing they won't be believed if they speak out. Very strong point. Like I said, when I first told the egg, she tried to play the victim. And she may have been a victim up to the point where she caught the sperm donor in bed with one of her children. I'm not going to say who, but at that point, any moment thereafter, she no longer was the victim. She became part of the problem and not the solution. And so, up until now, to her, it's never happened. Anyway, the next one is institutional denial. This is big because you read about this and you hear about it on TV, you read on the internet or see videos on the internet all about this institutional denial, which is examples of schools, religious organizations, sports clubs may deny or cover up allegations of CSA to protect their reputation or avoid legal repercussions. Again, most recent example is the Team Canada, boys Team Canada. This denial can perpetuate a culture of secrecy and enable further abuse by allowing perpetrators to remain in positions of power. And this is exactly what things happen. And of course, the last one is the impact of denial. Denial of CSA can have profound and long-lasting effects on survivors. Yes, it can. I speak from experience. It can lead to feelings of isolation, self-blame, and shame. Without validation and support, survivors may struggle to heal, and it may be at risk of experiencing additional trauma. Denial also perpetuates a cycle of abuse by allowing perpetrators to continue their harmful behavior unchecked. Breaking through denial requires a collective effort to listen to survivors, validate their experiences, and hold perpetrators accountable. This involves creating safe spaces for disclosure, providing access to mental health support, and challenging societal attitudes that minimize or excuse abusive behavior. Only by confronting denial head on can we begin to address the root causes of CSA and work towards prevention and healing. The impact of denial on CSA can be, once again, profound and far reaching, affecting not only the survivor, but also their families, communities, and society as a whole. And just want to go through a few of some key impacts. Survivor trauma. Denial of CSA can exacerbate the trauma experienced by survivors when their experiences are dismissed or invalidated. Survivors may feel isolated, ashamed, and powerless. This can lead to long-term psychological issues such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and even suicidal ideation. Now, I have to admit, when I had that phone call from the egg, it did put me back, and as I mentioned in previous episode, I had a lot of things going through my mind after I hung up that call. And basically, I was already depressed to begin with, but in battling that as well, but it just took me a step back. And so I definitely felt a lot of anxiety, and definitely PTSD. So I definitely know what that means to go through when, the person denies that it ever happened, or the person you're speaking to denies that it ever happened, or dismisses you. The next one is silencing of victims. Denial often silences victims, preventing them from speaking out about their experiences or seeking help. If survivors fear they won't be believed or will face backlash from disclosing, they may remain silent, allowing the abuse to continue unchecked. This silence perpetuates a cycle of abuse and prevents survivors from accessing the support they need to heal. The next one is normalization of abuse. When denial is pervasive in families, communities, or institutions, it can normalize abuse behavior and create a culture of silence around CSA. This normalization can make it easier for perpetrators to operate with impunity and for others to turn a blind eye to warning signs or allegations of abuse. Next one is secondary trauma for loved ones. Denial doesn't just affect the survivors, it also impacts their loved ones, family members, and friends who deny or minimize the abuse may inadvertently contribute to the survivor's trauma and struggle to provide the support they need. This can strain relationships and create additional stress and emotional turmoil for all involved. Well, for me, I have a very good support system, and it starts at home, with my wife. Since day one, when I initially told her, almost 19 years ago, she was always on my side. She's always been on my side. She's had my back, not just my back, but she's been there for me, and she's more than willing to stand up for me. I love that. Another reason why I love this woman so much. Perpetuation of abuse. Perhaps some alarmingly, denial of CSA perpetuates the cycle of abuse by allowing perpetrators to continue their harmful behavior without consequences. When allegations are ignored or covered up, perpetrators are emboldened to offend again, putting more children at risk of harm. The next one is sort of disturbing because it's underreporting or the lack of accountability. And I can see where all this is coming from. Nobody wants to report anything. And, I speak from experience. I didn't know when you're a kid, you don't know what your options are. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know where I could run to and tell without being harmed by going back home. I just didn't. When you're a young boy of 11 years old, 12 years old, you just don't know. This is where you account that your adult parents would do the right thing. But in my case, both of them were responsible for what happened. So denial can contribute to underreporting of CSA cases and a lack of accountability for perpetrators. When victims are discouraged from coming forward or their allegations are dismissed, perpetrators are less likely to be held accountable for their actions. So this can further empower perpetrators and undermine efforts to prevent future abuse. So it's important out there, if you're listening, that if you know of someone or you've heard of someone going through CSA, it's important to not only provide that support, that, first words is, hey, I believe that it happened to you. And second of all is, let's go together to the police and let's file that report. There's nothing more warming than having that person sitting beside you and saying, I'm here with you to do this and we're going to go through this together. There's nothing like it. And that extra, it just brings just a little bit of extra confidence. So the impact of societal attitudes. Denial of CSA reflects broader societal attitudes towards sexual violence, children's rights, and victim blaming. Addressing denial requires challenging these attitudes and fostering a culture of belief, support, and accountability for survivors. Overall, the impact of denial on CSA is profound and multifaceted, highlighting the urgent need for society to confront denial, support survivors, and hold perpetrators accountable for their actions. And when I say accountable, I don't mean to take violence into your own hands. I mean, let's report it to the police. Let's follow through that they get arrested. Let's follow through the court system. We're all in this together. And if you're out there listening and you are a survivor of CSA, we're all here together. And if you don't, for whatever reason, you don't have somebody, then reach out to me. I am more than willing to help in any way I can. And that leads to the next issue or item is supporting someone who is in denial about their experience of CSA requires empathy, patience, and understanding. So here's some ways that you can take to help them. The first one, which is very important, is listen without judgment. This is where I say listen. Do not listen to respond, but listen. So in this case, it's listen without judgment. So, you create a safe and supportive environment for the survivor to share their feelings and experiences. Listen actively and empathetically without interrupting or judging them. Let them know that you believe them and that you are there to support them no matter what. And when the most important thing you can do when you're listening to someone describe or tell you about their experience through CSA, put that phone down put it away, turn it off. Turn off the TV, turn off the radio. Give that person 100% of your concentration of listening. Because anything less than that, the person who is a CSA will then think that you're just doing it just because, but not because you care, or you have better things to do, or if you're looking at your phone, those messages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, emails, whatever you're staring at in your phone, that sort of tells them that that is more important than they are, being that they're trying to open up to you. The next one is validate their feelings. Acknowledge the survivor's feelings and reactions, even if they seem confusing or contradictory. Let them know that it's normal to feel overwhelmed, scared, or uncertain when confronting past trauma. Validate their courage in speaking out and seeking support. The next one is respect their pace. Again, there's no timeline. When somebody's opening up to you, there's no timeline, so let them take their sweet ass time. Healing from CSA is a deeply personal journey, and it's different for everyone. And it's important to respect the survivor's pace and boundaries. Avoid pressuring them to disclose more than they're comfortable sharing, or to confront their denial before they're ready. Let them take the lead in their own healing process. Very important. The next one is provide information and resources. Offer information about CSA, its effects, and available support services, such as counseling, support groups, and hotlines. Help the survivor explore their options for seeking professional help, and if they're open to it, don't force it. Be prepared to provide practical assistance, such as accompanying them to the appointments or helping them find a therapist. As I mentioned before, a survivor of CSA would love to have a person there helping them, guiding them, and being there to their, as I call it, their tree, their strong support system. The next one is encourage self-reflection. Help the survivor explore their feelings and beliefs about the abuse in a non-confrontational way. Encourage self-reflection and introspection, but avoid pushing them to confront their denial before they're ready. Validate their feelings of confusion or ambivalence and reassure them, that it's okay to take time to process their experience. The next is offer unconditional support. Let the survivor know that you are there for them unconditionally, no matter what they choose to do or how they're feeling. Reassure them that they are not alone and that you'll support them in every step of the way. Whether they choose to confront their denial, seek professional help, or simply talk about their feelings. Model healthy boundaries. Model healthy boundaries is your own interactions with the survivor, respecting their autonomy and agency. Avoid pushing them to disclose more than they're comfortable sharing or making decisions for them. Instead, empower them to make their own choices and support them in whatever path they choose. And lastly, educate yourself. Take the time to educate yourself about CSA, its effects, and how to support survivors. This will help you provide more informed and compassionate support to the survivor and better to understand the challenges they're facing. Even if that means, calling, your human resources and see what they have as far as support for somebody who is going through CSA and you want to help that person. So I'm sure your employer has, I've forgotten the name now, but they all have that one number that you can, 1-800 number that you can call for, to talk to somebody. And I would suggest do that. That's where you start. Call them and speak to somebody. Ask them to educate you, to inform you, or where to go, where maybe a particular library has a book or an audiobook. These are all the things that you can do. Remember that supporting someone through denial of CSA can be challenging and emotionally draining. So it's important to prioritize self-care and seek support for yourself if needed. And that includes for the spouses. If you're a spouse and your spouse is a survivor of CSA, that spouse needs some self-care and they need support as well. So don't forget that. And as we come to the end of today's episode, I want to extend once again my deepest gratitude to each of you for joining me in this important conversation about denial and childhood sexual abuse. It's not an easy topic to discuss, I know, and these various topics about childhood sexual abuse, it's not easy to discuss. But by shedding some light on these issues, we take a step forward towards healing and understanding. To all survivors listening, your strength and your resilience inspire us all, and it inspires me to continue on. So remember, you're not alone. I'm here. We're all here, and there is hope for healing. Let's continue to support and uplift each other as we navigate our individual journeys. Thank you for letting your ears and hearts today. Until next time, take gentle care of yourselves.